know it hurts your ears, Duke. Pretty soon me and you's gonna take a nice long walk outside. Give me the bone, Granny. I'll find him. Don't you worry, Duke. We'll get out of here.
What really happened behind the scenes of one of television's most beloved shows? The Beverly Hillbillies may have been a comedy classic, but its real story is anything but simple. From bitter caste feuds and unexpected legal battles to jaw-dropping guest stars and a shocking network decision that ended it all. This is a tale filled with triumph, tragedy, and television history. You've seen the laughs on screen, but the truth behind them might just surprise you.
Hey, nice wheels, buddy.
Jethro, why do you think that feller's pointing at us?
I reckon that's the way they wave howdy in California.
It's been more than half a century since the last original episode of the Beverly Hillbillies aired, yet the show still resonates with millions around the world. Syndicated reruns continue to attract loyal viewers who find comfort and amusement in its familiar scenes and characters. When the series officially ended, the reaction from fans was emotional and intense. Many had grown up with the show or had made it part of their weekly routine. So, when it was suddenly announced that the show was wrapping up, it came as a shock. People didn't just say goodbye to a sitcom, they felt they were losing something personal. Despite its enormous popularity with the public, the Beverly Hillbillies was never really a darling among critics. When the show debuted in 1962, it was met with sharp and, at times, brutal criticism. Reviewers from major newspapers and entertainment publications called it unfunny, dated, and even insulting. Some described watching the show as painful, while others wrote it off entirely as lowbrow entertainment with no real artistic merit. What's interesting is how stark the contrast was between these professional assessments and the response from the general public. While critics dismissed it, the public embraced it wholeheartedly. That divide raised an important question that still holds relevance today. Who truly decides what's worth watching? Critics or the audience? From the beginning, the Beverly Hillbillies was designed to lean into absurdity and play up the comedic clash between two vastly different ways of life. At its core, it told the story of a rural family who suddenly struck oil, became millionaires, and moved into a luxurious mansion in Beverly Hills. That premise alone carried plenty of potential for humor, especially during a time when American culture was shifting rapidly and becoming increasingly urbanized. And the Clampetts, led by the kind-hearted but simple Jed Clampett, were intended to be exaggerated representations of rural life. They weren't meant to be mocked, though. The humor often came from how well they held onto their values in contrast to the modern world surrounding them. What many viewers loved about the show was precisely what the critics rejected. Audiences were drawn to the characters' sincerity and the situational comedy that arose from their attempts to navigate a world that didn't make much sense to them. The humor may have been broad, but it was also clean, family-friendly, and easy to follow. That simplicity worked in its favor. It gave the show a kind of charm that made it accessible to people of all ages and backgrounds. The creator of the show, Paul Henning, didn't stumble upon this idea by accident. In fact, the inspiration came during a personal trip he took in 1959. Henning had been traveling with his mother through several Civil War-era sites in the southern United States when he began thinking about how rural life had changed over time. As he visited various locations and spoke to locals, the idea began to form. What would happen if a truly rural family, grounded in tradition and simplicity, were suddenly uprooted and placed in the middle of modern affluence? At first, Henning considered placing the Clampett family in New York City. The contrast between country life and the hustle of Manhattan certainly would have had comedic potential. But the practicalities of filming in New York, along with other logistical issues, made that idea difficult to execute. Beverly Hills, with its iconic mansions and luxury lifestyle, ended up being a perfect alternative. The visual of a family of former backwoods farmers living in one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in the country had immediate comedic appeal. It was a setting that lent itself to ongoing humor and cultural misunderstandings. episode after episode. When the show launched, it quickly became a ratings hit. Within just 6 weeks, the Beverly Hillbillies climbed to the #1 spot in American television. That level of success wasn't just a fluke or temporary burst of popularity. It was clear the show had tapped into something deeper, a desire for light-hearted entertainment that poked fun at cultural differences without being mean-spirited. During its peak years, it drew in tens of millions of viewers every week. From 1962 to 1964, it averaged around 57 million viewers per episode, an extraordinary number even by today's standards. While critics continued to complain, ordinary viewers kept watching. What the critics saw as tired or uninspired, fans saw as comforting and genuinely funny. Over time, the show began to occupy a unique space in television history. It wasn't groundbreaking in the traditional sense, and it certainly didn't win many awards, but it captured something authentic about American life, both the humor in cultural clashes and the idea that wealth doesn't necessarily change who you are at your core. Another important aspect that's often overlooked is the way the show challenged certain assumptions about class and identity. Yes, the Clampetts were written as hillbillies, but they were never portrayed as cruel, greedy, or self-serving. In fact, their rural values often made them more honest and generous than the people around them. They treated others with respect, held onto their traditions, and navigated the complexities of wealth without losing their sense of self. That kind of storytelling resonated with audiences who may have felt out of place in a rapidly changing society. The show gave them a way to laugh at those changes, while also appreciating the wisdom and warmth of older ways of life. This rejection by critics but acceptance by audiences speaks to a broader truth about how entertainment functions. What works on paper or in theory doesn't always land with real viewers. Television, especially in its early decades, was as much about connecting with ordinary people as it was about breaking new artistic ground. The Beverly Hillbillies wasn't trying to be high art. It was trying to entertain, and based on its viewership numbers and continued popularity in syndication, it clearly succeeded. Even today, conversations around the Beverly Hillbillies often circle back to the same point. How could a show so disliked by critics become one of the biggest hits of its time? The answer, perhaps, lies in the way it brought humor to universal themes, like the fear of change, the awkwardness of new experiences, and the tension between old values and modern expectations. These are ideas that don't belong to any one time period. They continue to resonate. As we look back on the early years of the show and its surprising rise to the top, it's clear that the Beverly Hillbillies achieved something rare. It created a world that people wanted to return to, week after week. Whether they were laughing at the Clampetts' confusion with modern appliances or their run-ins with uptight neighbors, audiences found something joyful in the contrast. And for many, that joy was more than enough. As the Beverly Hillbillies cemented itself as one of the most watched shows of its time, it wasn't just a television success, it became a cultural phenomenon. From water cooler conversations to late-night reruns, the series touched millions of households across America and beyond. Within just 6 weeks of its premiere, it soared to the top of the television ratings, holding the #1 spot with ease. At its peak between 1962 and 1964, it was pulling in viewership numbers that were unheard of at the time. An average of 57 million people tuned in weekly. Some episodes, particularly in 1964, were among the most watched broadcasts of the entire decade. One episode in particular, titled The Giant Jackrabbit, holds a special place in television history. Airing in 1964, it became one of the highest-rated half-hour episodes of any TV show ever, drawing an estimated 65% of the American television audience. What made this even more remarkable was that it aired on the same evening as President Lyndon B. Johnson's State of the Union address. Despite the competing national interest in politics, more people tuned in to see Granny chase what she believed was an oversized jackrabbit through the mansion than to hear from the leader of the free world. That speaks volumes about the show's wide-reaching appeal and the kind of escapism it offered during a tense period in American history. However, the show's influence didn't stop at television. As with many popular series, the Beverly Hillbillies also inspired a wide array of merchandise. Toys, games, comic books, and even dolls became part of the show's commercial presence. Yet one specific attempt to capitalize on the show's popularity led to a lengthy legal battle that highlighted an important issue in entertainment: how much control an actor has over their own image. Donna Douglas, who portrayed the beloved Ellie Mae Clampett, became known for her character's sweet nature and love for animals. Ellie Mae was instantly recognizable, with her blonde pigtails, jeans, and warm smile. As the show's popularity grew, her character became one of the most marketable faces in the series. It wasn't surprising then, when a doll resembling Ellie Mae began appearing on store shelves. Produced in partnership with the Barbie brand, the doll wore similar clothing and bore a strong resemblance to Douglas's on-screen persona. What surprised Donna Douglas, however, was that this product had been developed and sold without her knowledge or consent. The doll, which mirrored Ellie Mae's signature look, became a clear point of contention. Douglas believed her image and likeness were being used commercially without her approval or compensation. She filed a lawsuit against Mattel, the toy company behind Barbie, as well as CBS, the network that aired the Beverly Hillbillies. The legal argument centered on Douglas's right to control the commercial use of her appearance, especially when the doll's features were so closely aligned with her character. The lawsuit dragged on for years. It wasn't just about money. It also opened up a broader conversation about intellectual property rights in the entertainment industry. Actors often build their careers on roles that become iconic. But until recently, many had little to no say in how their likenesses were used once they left a show. Donna Douglas's case became a reference point in that ongoing debate. Eventually, in 2011, the case was settled out of court. The details of the settlement, including any financial compensation, were never made public. However, the case had already left its mark. It raised awareness within the industry and set a tone for future discussions about the rights of performers, especially in an age where merchandising and licensing had become critical revenue streams for studios. While Donna Douglas was engaged in her legal fight, fans of the show were also remembering another actress whose connection to the Beverly Hillbillies took a tragic turn: Sharon Tate. Before she became a rising star in Hollywood, Sharon Tate had a recurring role on the show as Janet Trego, a secretary at Mr. Drysdale's bank. She appeared in 15 episodes and left a strong impression on audiences. For Tate, the role was a stepping stone to a promising acting career, and her appearances on the show revealed her potential as a versatile and engaging performer. But her story came to a horrifying end in 1969 when she was murdered by followers of Charles Manson in one of the most infamous crimes in American history. At the time, Tate was 8 months pregnant and married to film director Roman Polanski. Her death sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry and cast a shadow over everything she had been part of, including her role in the Beverly Hillbillies. Though her connection to the show wasn't the central focus of her career, fans still remember her for her brief but notable contribution. Tragedy was not limited to Tate's story. The cast of the Beverly Hillbillies experienced various ups and downs in the years following the show's original run. Donna Douglas continued to make appearances related to her role as Ellie Mae and remained deeply connected to the show's legacy. When she passed away in January 2015, it marked the end of an era. She had carried the character with her for decades and was a beloved figure among fans. Her passing also left Max Baer Jr. as the last surviving original cast member. Baer, who played Jethro Bodine, had always maintained a strong vision for keeping the show's memory alive in a tangible way. He had ambitious plans to create a chain of Beverly Hillbillies-themed establishments that would include restaurants, hotels, and even a casino in Nevada. The idea was to create an immersive experience that paid homage to the show's legacy while offering a new kind of entertainment space for fans. Despite his efforts, those plans never fully came to fruition. Legal complications, licensing issues, and financial hurdles made the project difficult to sustain. Still, Bear's commitment to honoring the show remains evident in interviews and public appearances. The impact of the Beverly Hillbillies extended beyond its cast and creators. It touched multiple industries, from television to toys, and shaped conversations about fame, image rights, and legacy. For a show that was often dismissed by critics as simplistic or lowbrow, it had a surprisingly complex afterlife. From the record-breaking ratings to the courtroom drama over a doll, it became clear that this series had embedded itself deeply into American pop culture. What made the show endure was its connection with the everyday viewer. It didn't try to reinvent the wheel. Instead, it focused on creating a consistent world with characters that audiences could return to week after week. The humour came from a place of character, not cruelty. It poked fun at differences, but never in a mean-spirited way. In doing so, it created a sense of belonging and familiarity for people watching at home. As the years went on, syndication kept the show alive, bringing new generations into contact with the Clampetts and their fish-out-of-water adventures. While legal battles and tragic events have occasionally complicated its history, they've also shown how deeply tied the show was to the lives of those who worked on it and watched it. What remains today is a testament to the power of simple storytelling. Even in an industry known for its fast pace and short memories, the Beverly Hillbillies managed to carve out a lasting legacy. And as more people look back at television's golden age, the show continues to hold a special place as both a source of nostalgia and a fascinating case study in the evolution of entertainment. The mansion featured in the Beverly Hillbillies wasn't just a lavish backdrop for comedic situations, it became one of the most iconic television homes of all time. Known as the Kirkby Mansion, the estate located at 750 Bel Air Road in Los Angeles served as the fictional Clampett family's luxurious residence after they struck oil and moved from the Ozarks to Beverly Hills. What made this mansion stand out wasn't just its size and splendor, but the contrast it provided to the characters' simple country background. That visual and cultural contrast helped amplify much of the show's humor and charm. Built during the Great Depression in the 1930s, the Kirkby Mansion was an architectural marvel of its time. At the time of its construction, the house reportedly cost around $2 million, a huge sum in that era. The estate spanned over 21,000 square feet and included lavish features such as a waterfall, a private elevator, and even a helicopter landing pad. Its sheer opulence made it an ideal symbol of Beverly Hills wealth, and by extension the kind of lifestyle the Clampetts found themselves navigating, often with comedic result. The property was owned by Arnold Kirkby, a wealthy hotelier who allowed the production team of the Beverly Hillbillies to rent the mansion for filming. According to reports, the producers paid about $500 per day to use the property, a figure that might seem modest by today's standards, but was considered a reasonable daily fee for a luxury estate in the 1960 S. That rental fee gave the production access to the front exterior and driveway, which were frequently shown in the series and became instantly recognizable to fans. The mansion itself almost became a character in the show. Its grandeur made the Clampetts' presence all the more amusing, especially as they brought their rural habits into a setting where they clearly stood out. Whether it was Granny cooking possum in the state-of-the-art kitchen or Jethro parking the old jalopy out front, the mansion provided the perfect backdrop for the show's central joke, the comedic collision between two different worlds. The estate continued to capture imaginations even after filming ended. Over the decades, it changed hands multiple times and gained a sort of legendary status in Hollywood and real estate circles. In 2007, the mansion was sold for a reported $30 million, underlining both its historical value and enduring appeal. The property even made an appearance in the 1987 Sylvester Stallone film Over the Top, further adding to its legacy in entertainment history. Another moment that brought real-life celebrity into the show came in the form of a guest appearance by John Wayne, one of Hollywood's most legendary actors. The showrunners had often tried to get high-profile stars to make appearances, but Wayne's participation was a particularly significant moment. He featured in an episode where Granny, the matriarch of the Clampett family, expressed her desire to meet the famous Western star. When Wayne did show up in the episode, it wasn't just a delightful twist for viewers. It was a moment of crossover between two pillars of American pop culture: classic Western cinema and television comedy. Interestingly, John Wayne didn't ask for a large payment to appear on the show. Instead of requesting a standard appearance fee, he simply asked to be compensated with a bottle of bourbon. This light-hearted request reflected Wayne's well-known relaxed attitude and added another layer of charm to the story. His appearance was brief, but the novelty of seeing such a major star on the show left a lasting impression with fans and was later recognized as one of the most memorable moments in the series' history. Off-screen dynamics among the cast members were not always as harmonious as the fictional Clampett family. One of the most notable examples involved Nancy Culp, who played Jane Hathaway, the loyal but somewhat uptight secretary to banker Milburn Drysdale. Culp was widely praised for her comedic timing and her ability to play the straight character against the Clampetts' eccentricities. However, her relationship with co-star Buddy Ebsen, who played Jed Clampett, became strained after the series ended. In the early 1980s, long after the show had wrapped, Nancy Culp entered politics. She decided to run for the United States House of Representatives in Pennsylvania. Her campaign, while commendable for its courage and ambition, quickly became entangled in unexpected controversy when Buddy Ebsen publicly opposed her candidacy. Ebsen, known for his strong political opinions, aired a radio advertisement during her campaign that was critical of Culp's political views and character. His involvement was a shock to many fans who had long assumed the cast shared a familial bond off-screen. The advertisement didn't just reflect a difference of opinion, it marked a serious rift between the two actors. Many viewed Ebsen's actions as a betrayal, especially given that they had worked closely together for years. While it's not entirely clear how much influence the ad had on the election outcome, Culp lost her race, and the bitterness that resulted never fully healed. She would later say that she never forgave Ebsen for what he had done, and the incident became one of the more uncomfortable chapters in the show's legacy. The eventual end of the Beverly Hillbillies didn't come because of a drop in popularity. In fact, by the early 1970s, the show was still attracting a solid audience. But television as a whole was going through a major transformation. A period now referred to as the Rural Purge began taking hold in the early part of the decade. Networks, particularly CBS, which had been home to the Beverly Hillbillies, began shifting their programming strategies in an effort to attract younger, more urban viewers. Executives believed that the advertising industry would respond more favorably to shows that reflected modern, metropolitan lifestyles. This meant that programs set in rural environments or those with folksy themes were suddenly seen as outdated, regardless of how successful they were. Alongside the Beverly Hillbillies, several other beloved series were cancelled, including Green Acres, Lassie, and Petticoat Junction. The term rural purge was coined to describe this abrupt and sweeping change. Actor Pat Buttram, who played Mr. Haney on Green Acres, famously summed up the period by saying that CBS has cancelled everything with a tree in it. For the Beverly Hillbillies, the cancellation wasn't about declining quality or audience fatigue. It was part of a broader effort by the network to modernize its image and appeal to a different demographic. This decision marked the end of an era, both for the show and for the style of television it represented. The shift left many fans disappointed, as they felt that a genuine and entertaining part of their lives had been taken away for reasons that had little to do with storytelling or performance. Despite its cancellation, the legacy of the Beverly Hillbillies continued to grow. Reruns found new audiences on cable and in international markets, and the show was introduced to a new generation of viewers who discovered its humor and heart decades after it originally aired. Its mix of rural charm and satirical edge still resonates with many today, serving as a time capsule of American culture in the 1960s and early 70s. The Beverly Hillbillies did more than just entertain, it reflected, in its own comedic way, the cultural and economic divides that were shaping the country. It reminded viewers that wealth and class didn't automatically translate to wisdom, and that being true to your roots could be both funny and admirable. Whether it was through a grand mansion, a surprise appearance by a Hollywood legend, or a quietly tense off-screen conflict, the show continually engaged with both its time and its audience. The influence of the Beverly Hillbillies didn't stop with television. Its reach extended into music, merchandising, books, and even culinary culture. One of the most recognizable elements of the show was its theme song, which became a signature part of the viewing experience. Titled The Ballad of Jed Clampett, the song introduced audiences to the basic premise of the show in a catchy, upbeat tone that perfectly captured the series' spirit. Performed by Jerry Scoggins with backing by bluegrass legends Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs, the theme song quickly gained popularity in its own right. Scoggins' folksy vocals combined with the banjo-driven melody helped the song climb the country music charts, eventually reaching number 1 in 1963. Remarkably, it even crossed over to the mainstream pop charts, peaking at number 44. This was a rare feat for a television theme song at the time, especially one rooted so deeply in country and bluegrass traditions. The success of the theme helped elevate Flatt and Scruggs' status even further in the music industry. Their involvement in the show brought bluegrass music to a broader audience, giving it more visibility than it had previously enjoyed in the mainstream media. The musical legacy of the show was so enduring that when a feature-length film remake was announced in the early 1990s, Jerry Scoggins offered to reprise his role as the singer of the theme. Studio executives were reportedly surprised to hear from him, having assumed he had passed away. But Scoggins was very much alive and eager to contribute, underscoring how meaningful the original project remained to those involved. Another character who left a lasting impression was Granny, played by Irene Ryan. Granny was a constant source of laughter thanks to her fiery personality, old-fashioned remedies, and general suspicion of modern life. Her eccentricities, particularly her fascination with homemade moonshine, referred to as white lightning, became running gags that fans adored. Granny's willingness to treat anything with her strange concoctions, paired with her deep loyalty to family, made her both funny and endearing. Granny also had a unique approach to food. She was known for cooking up meals that were unconventional by Beverly Hills standards. In one of her most memorable quirks, she'd refer to roadkill as victuals, and in the world of the Beverly Hillbillies, nothing went to waste. This rustic, no-nonsense attitude toward cooking became such a defining part of her character that it inspired a real-life cookbook called Granny's Beverly Hillbilly Cookbook. The book compiled recipes inspired by the series and its country-style approach to food. More than a gimmick, the cookbook captured the spirit of the show in a tangible way. It invited fans into the kitchen with dishes that evoked the warmth and simplicity of the Clampett family. Max Bear Jennett, who played Jethro Bowden, even wrote the foreword, giving it an added layer of authenticity. His involvement helped bridge the gap between the fictional world of the Clampetts and the real-world audience that continued to cherish their story. Speaking of Jethro, the character played by Max Baer Jr. wasn't just comic relief. He became a standout figure in his own right. Jethro's childlike enthusiasm and desire to pursue grand, often unrealistic career goals made him relatable to viewers who saw him as well-meaning but slightly clueless. Whether he wanted to be a brain surgeon, a movie producer, or a secret agent, Jethro's ambitions always ended in comical disaster, but behind the character was an actor with his own long-term vision for the show's legacy. After the series ended, Max Baer Jr. spent years trying to develop Beverly Hillbillies-themed businesses. His plan included a combination of hotels, casinos, and restaurants, all modeled after the world created by the show. He wanted fans to be able to step into a space that brought the series to life, complete with visual nods to iconic scenes and settings. Unfortunately, despite some progress, legal disputes and financial complications prevented these plans from fully materializing. Still, Bear's dedication to preserving the show's memory was clear and consistent over the years. Among the many symbols associated with the Beverly Hillbillies, few were as iconic as the family's old truck. Referred to affectionately as the Jalopy, it was a 1921 Oldsmobile Model 46 Roadster that had seen better days. Loaded with Granny's rocking chair, pots and pans, the Jalopy became the Clampetts' main mode of transportation and a visual representation of their rural identity amid the wealth of Beverly Hills. It reminded viewers of where the family came from and served as a comic juxtaposition to the expensive cars that usually roamed the neighborhood. In 1976, during the US bicentennial celebrations, the Jalopy was donated to a museum as a tribute to its cultural significance. Over the years, the car made public appearances and even traveled to England as part of promotional efforts. It became more than just a prop. It was a piece of television history that helped define the show's visual identity. Away from the spotlight, Buddy Ebsen, who played Jed Clampett, had a rich and varied career. He was not only an actor, but also a dancer and later a writer. After stepping back from acting, Ebsen turned to literature and published a novel titled Kelly's Quest. The book followed the journey of a young girl as she navigated joy, heartache, and self-discovery. Ebsen self-published the book, and despite the challenges that often come with that route, Kelly's Quest managed to reach number 3 on the Los Angeles Times paperback bestseller list in 2001. It was a testament to Ebsen's storytelling ability and his continued connection to audiences. Ebsen's post-television career reflected a recurring theme among the cast, an eagerness to keep creating even after their defining roles were behind them. They weren't content to rest on their laurels. Whether it was through lawsuits, political campaigns, cookbooks, or writing, the stars of the Beverly Hillbillies continued to influence culture long after the cameras stopped rolling. The show's influence was not limited to nostalgia. It provided a commentary on class, identity, and American values, often wrapped in humor but underpinned by real questions about what it means to belong. The Clampetts were constantly misunderstood by their wealthy neighbors, yet they remained loyal, honest, and true to themselves. The contrast between their values and those of the elite surroundings created ongoing tension, but also revealed a deeper message. Wealth doesn't define character. That message, delivered through jokes and slapstick, still resonates today. For all its outlandish moments and exaggerated situations, the Beverly Hillbillies managed to reflect something real about human nature and society. It offered a form of comedy that was warm rather than cruel, inviting viewers to laugh with the characters rather than at them. As decades have passed, the show remains a fixture in classic television lineups. It continues to attract new audiences who find comfort in its simplicity and humor. Reruns air regularly, DVDs are available, and clips circulate online, keeping the legacy alive in the digital age. The show's impact is seen not only in pop culture references, but also in the lasting affection fans have for the Clampetts and their world. Even now, conversations around the show spark discussions about representation, media evolution, and the business of entertainment. The Beverly Hillbillies may have begun as a simple fish-out-of-water comedy, but its reach and influence extended far beyond what anyone expected. In the end, the Beverly Hillbillies wasn't just a television show. It was a touchstone in American entertainment, one that blended satire and sincerity in a way that left a permanent mark. It reminded audiences that sometimes the biggest laughs come from the smallest towns, and that even in a mansion in Beverly Hills, family, humility, and humor are what truly matter.